Let flames singe the delicate dust seeds of native shrubs. In the hot calm, the bees are loud, working wings and elbows with an angry sound as you leap the tussocks, amazed. The shapes and passions hidden in a sheet of flame, and among them all, a new forest rising.
My name's Andy Baker. I've been living and working in Byron Shire for about 27 years as a fire and vegetation ecologist. Good fire is small and controlled, applied to the right vegetation type at the right time of year and under the right conditions. Fire plays a crucial role in the global carbon cycle by locking up carbon as charcoal. And in our region, it's actually the exclusion of fire that disrupts this cycle.
My name's Oliver Costello. I'm a Bundjalung man. We're on Bundjalung country here. The absence of cultural fire in these landscapes of Bundjalung country has been pretty detrimental to the biodiversity. What we've seen in this landscape is our rainforest country burning because the country that should be burnt isn't being burnt. And so then when it all builds up, you end up with a big time bomb of fuel that will then damage the rainforest country.
So virtually all open forest plants, from the tallest eucalypt to the tiniest orchid, they need sunlight on bare ground to germinate. And fire is the only landscape process that actually does this at scale. In the absence of fire, essentially what you have is rainforest pioneers start moving into the open forest ecosystem, and really quickly those rainforest pioneers can develop a dense mid-story, and that dense shady mid-story can eliminate the understory ground layer plant communities. So within only 5, 10 or 20 years of these pioneers coming through, you can completely eliminate those ground layer communities. So fire really effectively doubles the biodiversity, plant and animal species we have in the Shire.
Being able to burn the right way is kind of helping those plants and animals to be able to kind of move with change. And it also keeps their pathways clear so they can move around. They're not moving through all this scrub. They've actually got, grassy sort of pathways that, it's what our old people used to travel, and it's the same thing that our emus and koalas and kangaroos and a whole heap of species that like a fire, we have similar needs. And if we don't put that right fire for them, then they start to disappear and they start to struggle in the landscape.
And of course the other great thing that we're now starting to learn that good fire does in these open forests is it helps restore and maintain crucial carbon sequestration pathways. So for all that material that was burnt in the fire, all those leaves and twigs and bark, around a quarter of it actually gets converted to charcoal. And that charcoal is the original biochar, and it's basically pure carbon. Over time, what happens is that charcoal, large amounts of it are actually washed off-site and into streams where they make their way into long-term sequestration, either in wetlands or deep oceanic sinks. Over time, that smoke emissions that are going on with CO2 is actually a zero-sum game and a closed loop. The key to that process is that as the forest regrows to replace that bark and litter and leaves, it can't draw that carbon back out from those ground or charcoal reserves. It has to replace it from the atmosphere. So over time, it's essentially drawing carbon out of the atmosphere and with each fire locking it away into long-term sequestration. So we've all seen those satellite images of those enormous plumes of smoke pouring off the East Australian coast during those black summer fires. Well, these researchers tracked that smoke as it headed out across New Zealand, and ultimately it settled onto the ocean in the middle of the Pacific. And when it settled on the ocean, it triggered these vast oceanic plankton blooms. And like land plants, plankton absorbs CO2, and it is estimated that these plumes actually absorbed enough CO2 to offset the total emissions from the black summer fires. So we've written a 10-year plan for this property, which will guide us on where and how to burn and restore fire back to the property. And in the cooler seasons, we, with the help of Indigenous fire practitioners and bush regenerators and ecologists, we apply cool fire to the forest in a very coordinated way, so we create a mosaic effect through the forest. And we'd like to establish a project that becomes a showcase and also a learning resource for any other landholders that would like to apply good fire on their property. I encourage everybody, especially landholders of open forest types, to get informed about cultural and ecological fire management. Engage expert support and get involved in the restoration of good fire in our precious open forests.
And landholders really hold the key, by being able to kind of open the door and let custodians kind of come back to their country and actually teach the stories and the knowledge of the land. It's also beneficial for, I think, people to learn that and to be able to become a custodian too of that knowledge and practice and be able to look after the land as our old people did for thousands of years.